Hello everyone, myself Ananda and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to explore Mulesoft CloudHub 2.0, some of its features and architecture. So let's move to next slide. So what is CloudHub 2.0? So it's the containerized iPaaS offering by Mulesoft, and it's fully managed. So the underneath infrastructure is fully managed by Mulesoft. The deployment of application will be on lightweight containers, and the isolation of applications, especially in CloudHub 2.0, in shared space when multi-tenancy is where there will be a multi-tenancy model. So tenants or licensed subscribers of MuleSoft will coexist, but they cannot access each other's applications or data. And this containerization model will ensure that kind of isolation. Now, moving to next slide. I'm facing a little bit problem in transitioning the slide. Okay. So what is the key highlights of CloudHub 2.2? So it's a container-based model as opposed to VM-based model in CloudHub 1.0. And since it is container-based, so it can enable application spin up much faster. So application deployed and then application become up and running. The total time duration is much lesser than what it takes in CloudHub 1.0. Much more granularity is possible in CloudHub 2.0 in terms of vCore allocation. So if you remember in CloudHub 1.0, you can allocate 0.1 vCore, 0.2 vCore, and then straight away you have to go to 1 vCore and then 2 vCore. But in CloudHub 2.0, you can proceed like 0.1 vCore, then 0.2 vCore, then 0.5 vCore, then 1 vCore, then 1.5 vCore, then 2 vCore. So in terms of vCore allocation, there are much more fraction is possible. And then the outbound firewall rule configuration to control egress traffic is a great feature which was not there in CloudHub 1.0. So you can control the inbound traffic through the dedicated load balancers, but outbound traffic control was not possible in MuleSoft CloudHub 1.0. So here it is possible. So now you can ensure that your experience API can send the traffic only to process API by configuring this outbound firewall. This is just an example to make you understand what does this outbound firewall rule configuration means. Then application clustering on more than one replica can be done seamlessly. So if you can, once you deploy your application on CloudHub 2.0, if you select more than one replica, then automatically this clustering option will be available. So maybe in another video, I will try to come up with shared space and how we can deploy application on shared space, and we can give a more closer look to it. But in this video, I am more focusing on the key features and architecture of CloudHub 2.2. The next feature is zero infrastructure maintenance, and it's no advanced setup is needed for application deploy to shared space. So shared space is, as I mentioned earlier, also it's kind of a place where you can deploy your application code with co-tenancy. I mean, it's not single tenant space because single tenant is private space. Shared space is mostly shared by, not mostly, it's actually shared by all the tenant of MuleSoft applications. Tenants means those who are the licensed user of MuleSoft iPaaS offering, and but shared space are automatically available. I mean, once you go and try to deploy your application from the drop down, you can see that along with your CloudHub 1.0, You will also have a CloudHub 2.0 and a shared space. And shared spaces are available in multiple regions. And the default shared space region which is available is US East. It's in Ohio. At least, I mean, what I saw that in trial version account, US Ohio is the only option available. So next, now let us a little bit focus on where CloudHub 2.0 is better than CloudHub 1.0. So what is the CloudHub 2.0's USP? Why I should go for CloudHub 2.0? So one thing we already discussed, the first point, that the more it's added with more fractional vCore. So now instead of going from 0.2 to directly 1, you have an option of 0.5 vCore. You have an option of 1.5 vCore. So resource optimization is little bit flexible. So during the design time, sometimes what happened that we need to decide that whether I should segregate the API or I should club the API with more endpoints or resources. Especially these things, these are the decision driven by my code utilization and how I will assign my code to API. Apart from all business discussion, how my API should look like and all these things, but there are some NFR key points are also there, which we usually consider while doing this kind of, taking this kind of decision. So since now there are more fractional vCores are available, so this kind of decision will be much flexible and we have more flexibility. So now I know that even if I create a API which is slightly bigger in size, might not be fully fit in a 0.2 vCore, I can very well go for a 0.5 vCore. I need not to go directly to a 1 vCore. So that way I can ensure that my resources are optimized in a better way. So because you can understand that between 0.2 and 1 a huge gap. So in between now 0.5 vCore is introduced, which is a better, it's a very good advantage. Now auto scaling of private ingress load balancer. So if I compare ingress load balancer with CloudHub 1.0 component, then it will be the dedicated load balancer. And if you remember the dedicated load balancer, you can configure dedicated load balancer at minimum with 2 workers. And then if you need to scale up, you have to manually go and add workers for dedicated load balancer. But here in CloudHub 2.0, it's pure elasticity in terms of dedicated load balancer expansion under high load. So it will be automatically expand. You need not to do anything. It can take care of the ingress load. And same is for VPN. So VPN high availability is also out of the box. So that means, lot of management headache is reduced in CloudHub 2.0. Then application deployed on private space, it has both public and private endpoints available by default. So when you deploy a application on private space, both based on your domain configuration or TLS context, your public endpoints will be available and your private endpoints will also be available. So private endpoints are the endpoints over which only the applications can interact within the private space. So no one can call those endpoints from outside private space, or if you, due to some reason, you need to access those private endpoints outside of private space, then you need to do it through either VPN tunneling or through transit gateway. And then configuration of multiple public endpoints, which is another advantage, which is not possible in CloudHub 1.0. So that is also possible. So you can add additional endpoints to your, additional public endpoints to your application based on your domain configuration or TLS context. And this log enable disable feature is by default. So in CloudHub 1.0, so if you don't want to forward your log to any point monitor, and instead of that, you want to send your log to some third-party tool like Splunk or Elk, So first thing what you need to do, you need to connect to CloudHub, Mulesoft support and ask them to enable that feature. Then only you can see that there is an option where, I mean, it's a radio box where you can switch on the log. And I mean, you can enable the log or you can disable the log. But in CloudHub 2.0, you need not to go through that route. It is already available, and you need to just enable it or disable it from the console. And in CloudHub 2.0, one another advantage is that your application name need not to be globally unique. So if I can create a hello world and deploy it, you can also create your hello world and deploy it. So how CloudHub 2.0 is ensuring uniqueness across the entire, I mean, universally within CloudHub 2.0, is that CloudHub 2.0 will, when you deploy your application, it will append a unique ID automatically. And that unique ID, it's a six-digit ID, and it will be unique for everyone or for every application. Apart from that, there is a SHARD ID, which is specific to a private space. So every private space have another unique ID, and that will be managed by CloudHub 2.0 internally. So for example, when you deploy a application, say your application name is test app, and you are deploying it on North Virginia, which is USA E1 region. So then your application name will be test tab, then that it will be appended with that 6-digit unique ID dot the private space ID, then dot USU1, which is your region, and that dot cloudhub.io. And in CloudHub 2.0, it's possible that you can change or update or edit your TLS context in place. Now, some of the key consideration for when you want to choose CloudHub 2.0, these are the consideration also, I mean, you need to look into. So CloudHub 2.0 does not support direct connect or VPC peering. It's only support transit gateway and VPN. So CloudHub 2.0, if applications are not running, still it will consume the vCode license. That means if you remember in CloudHub 1.0, if you don't using any application on any API which is already deployed, you can stop that API or application. The underneath vCode will automatically released, and you can use that vCode for some other API deployment or application deployment. But that's not true in CloudHub 2.0. Even if you stop, it will still hold that vCode. It will not release that vCode. And if you want to get rid of this, or maybe if you want to get back these vCodes, you need to delete that application from your private or shared space. Redeployment is the only option if you want to move application between regions. So if suppose you have already deployed an API on US East 1, which is North Virginia, now you need to move it to US East 2 regions, which is Ohio. In that case, what you need to do, you need to redeployment from your code version or code version repository, or from your local repository. You need to again redeploy the code to the target region, that is YO, and maybe you need to come back and then delete the application from North Virginia. So once it's actually deployed, you cannot move the application from one region to another region. Then private space can be associated with multiple environment based on the type. So in CloudHub 1.0, what happened is when we create a VPC, we can define the environments, and not the environment type, but the actual environment name. So I can define, I mean, I can add my dev environment or UAT environment or QA environment to a particular VPC. Now in private space, it will be based on type. So either my environments can be of sandbox type, or it can be of production type. And I can define I can mention that private, I mean, my private space is for this particular type of environment or that particular type of environment. And also it will attach to an individual business group. So all HR sandbox type environment are part of my private space A. All finance production type environment are my private space, are part of my private space B, where finance and HR is my business groups. So that's the example to clarify the concept. So that's the way how you can define. And CloudHub 2.0 only supports Mule 4.3.0 or 2.4.4.x runtime. Both HTTP and HTTPS traffic, the port is 8081. So unlike Mulesoft CloudHub 1.0, where HTTP ports are associated, I mean, HTTP traffics are on port 8081 and HTTPS traffics are on port 8082. But here, both HTTP and HTTPS traffic are on port 8081. And application bursting depend on the resource usage. So what happened is that, I mean, application bursting, I think it's the come from the concept of overall containerization. So what happened that you can, under high load, your replica can scale up, and that scale up is only possible if at that point of time resources, means CPUs and memories, are available. If that same CPU and memories are being utilized by other applications because it's working in a shared mode, then your application bursting may not happen. So there is no guarantee that application bursting will happen. So it better to go for a multiple replica and go for a clustering mode if you want to achieve a high availability architecture. So what are not supported in CloudHub 2.0? So these are also important, because if these things are absolute necessary for your implementation or for your architecture, then probably your case is not a good candidate to move to CloudHub 2.0. You can still stick on CloudHub 1.0. So endpoint security, secret manager, tokenizer, web application firewall policies, these are not available, or these are not supported in CloudHub 2.0. Then get from sandbox feature. So this feature is basically in CloudHub 1.0. Using this feature, you can directly migrate from console. You can directly migrate one application from your sandbox application to production application, or maybe from one environment to another environment. So that is not possible in CloudHub 2.0. Insights are not available, and instead of that, you need to use anypoint monitoring. And as already mentioned, that Mule runtime version prior to 4.3.0 is not available. And also overwriting JVM parameter, overriding of default JVM trusted with customs trusted, these facilities are not there. Lock points is not available. Custom notification, I think this is one major miss or major lacking in CloudHub 2.0. I'm not sure why it is not there. But it's very important. Many customers use CloudHub connector and custom notification. So that is also not available on CloudHub 2.0. TLS 1.0 is not supported, and data graph is also not supported on CloudHub 2.0. So this is the CloudHub 2.0 architecture. So we have a runtime manager through which actually we deploy or manage the application. And then we have platform services for coordinating the deployment, and then gathering the application related data or analytics, getting log data, managing the replica. So all the management part is done through these platform services, and it is shared across. So everybody is using these services. And these services are exposed through CloudHub 2.0 REST. And then there is CloudHub 2.0. It's actually the elastic cloud instance of replicas. On top of this, we deployed our applications or API. So if we go a little bit detail on CloudHub replicas, so each replica has their own specific amount of capacity, means CPU and memory. So each replica runs in a separate container, and that way they ensure that they are isolated from, the applications are isolated from each other, and they are deployed and managed independently. So they can run in specific global region, and at this moment they can run on US region or Europe region or APAC region. So each replica has a minimum of 8 GB of storage for both system and application data storage. For both system and application usage. And to increase the storage capacity, so there is a chart available on Mulesoft documentation, and from there you can find out that minimum is 8 GB, but based on your replica size, this storage capacity can increase. But on a specific replica size or specific worker size, if you need more storage, then you can add additional worker instead of, you can increase the number of replica, and that will increase the storage capacity. If application need more vCode, suppose you are deploying and at that moment most of your vCodes, all of your vCodes got exhausted, and you are deploying your application on top of that. So CloudHub 1.0 you cannot deploy. It will throw you an error. But CloudHub 2.0 you can still deploy, but the application will not up and running, because unless and until you provision additional vCode, or you delete some of your unused API and get some additional vCode for this new application. And the metaspace limit for deployed application is currently 256 MB. So metaspace is nothing but it's a JVM, it's a native space in JVM where the metadata of classes are maintained, and more class you load and more metaspace tend to grow. So the maximum limit is 256 MB, and there is a threshold limit of 128 MB. So after 120, once your metaspace reached for a particular application, and metaspace is specific to application. So application A have its own metaspace, application B has its own metaspace, because JVM are also attached to a specific application in CloudHub or in iPaaS model. Now, if metaspace, once it's reached to 128 MB, then the metaspace garbage collection happens. So now these are the three type of multi-tenancy is possible in CloudHub 2.0. One is the shared global space or the shared space, where if you deploy your code, it will be co-tenant with other tenant. So there will be a co-tenancy, but the thing is that it will still be isolated. One tenant cannot access another tenant applications or data. Single tenant private space, what we already discussed, it is more like VPC in CloudHub 1.0 concept. So it is virtual and isolated space in CloudHub 2.0 for deployment. And then the management controller platform service, which is the anypoint platform or the control plane, which is serves shared by all tenants. What is the scalability and availability? So CloudHub 2.0 provide a better availability and scalability feature. So it has a redundant platform. So all CloudHub 2.0 platform services are supported with at least one built-in layer of redundancy. So what happened? These services are running at least on 2 data center, and those data centers are at least 60 kilometer. I think, sorry, not kilometer, it's 60 miles apart. Geographically, they are 60 miles apart from each other. So if even if one data center goes down, entire data center goes down, the application, the services will still up and running and available for use, because they have a redundant data center where it is at least one layer of redundancy is there. Then intelligent healing, it's CloudHub 2.0 monitor replicas, and it apply a self-healing mechanism if there is any problem. So if the platform goes down or crashed, then it will spin up another replica in another data center. And if there is some issue or bug in the code itself, so that for that reason the replica is gone down or something happened, then it will spin up another replica. So it will ensure that, I mean, even under problem, it will go and apply a intelligent healing, and that way the availability will be much higher. So CloudHub 2.0 has the zero downtime upgrade feature. So this feature you have to select. I mean, if you select that feature, so then what it will do, if one application is already up and running and you are trying to deploy another version, in the sense upgraded version of that application, then while deploying it, your customer or end user can still connect to the older version when the newer version is getting deployed. So they can still access the older version, they can use it, and when the deployment of the newer version will fully completed, then newer version will take place of the older version. So the entire upgrade will happen without customers facing or sensing any downtime. And then the clustering feature, if you deploy your application on two or more number of replicas, then this feature will automatically available. So basically you can make a cluster of replicas where replicas can exchange information among themselves, and that will provide scalability, better workload distribution, and reliability, and it will make it more resilient basically. So that's it from for today. Thank you everyone. I hope you like this video. If you like this video, then please do like, share and comment. This will really motivate me to come up with next video, and I will try to create another video on shared space and CloudHub 2.0 deployment, and I mean, some of the feature what we discussed today, I will try to show you. So till then, thank you and have a nice day. Bye.